All right. Welcome, everybody. My name is Sejal Thakkar, and I'm the Chief Culture Officer at Nobody Studios. And today we are going to be talking about a question that all leaders should be asking themselves, right? And this is, I'm talking about across the globe. We live in this world where organizations are driven by profit driven motives. And so the question we're going to be talking about with my guest today is how can organizations successfully align their purpose with their culture, especially for organizations like Nobody Studios, that we want to make a lasting impact, again, all over. So welcome to the show, Brooke Erol. I can't wait to tell everybody about you, but I'm so glad that you took some time to have this important conversation with us today.
Of course, thank you for the invitation. You know how much I love these topics. So looking forward to our conversation together. Thank you.
No, I want to just dive right in because the question that I posed for this show, I knew as soon as you said yes, I'm like, I knew what I wanted to talk to you about because we're not just having I don't want to just talk about it from like a philosophical sort of standpoint. Let's have a general debate. I think we want to give people on this show practical advice, especially again for organizations that are out there trying to make a difference. And so let me tell everybody a little bit about you and what you're out there doing. First of all, Brooke has supported Nobody Studios from the beginning. She's an investor in the studio. Brooke and I have known each other for a couple of years. I'm a huge fan of her work. She's a passionate advocate for helping transform workplaces through her purpose-driven leadership approach. And she's been doing this for a long time. And just you'll get to hear some of her perspectives, but she's really elevating what I like to say is the human side of business, right? And so, Brooke, I just want to start off by asking, I love asking people this question, what drew you to our journey and what is it about Nobody Studios that I know that you want to take more of an active role and we'll talk about what that looks like, but just share a little bit about why you're in this journey with me here. And I'm so glad that you are.
Sure. Thank you. First of all, thanks for the warm and wonderful introduction. You're so kind. I think it was very easy, even starting with the name of the company. Nobody Studios got my attention immediately as soon as a friend of mine told about Nobody Studios to me. I said, "Oh, look at the name, even," because I am a person who wants to be inclusive. I think when you do the Strengths Finder, everything is one of my traits in me that I always love to be inclusive. So that's why, first of all, the name definitely attracted me. Really genius, wonderful name, because we are everybody, we are nobody. We're not trying to create clans or levels of people who are better than others. We want to have the crowd working on these projects together. So, and then of course I digged into the website, and then everything that you say aligns with me. Like, okay, it's people first. I'm definitely people first believer. Then social impact. Then like value, bringing more value, or the power of the crowd together. I'm such a big believer that we're not organizations. We are made up of people. Organization is not a structure, especially now. We don't even go to the offices. It's just made up of wonderful individuals working together. I'm a big believer in collective intelligence and using the crowd's power for the betterment of the company, but also for the world. So anything and everything I saw was really in alignment with what I believe. So it made me excited. Then I get to meet you and the people of Nobody Studios. Oh my God, there was like no brainer. I wanted to be involved in every size and shape and format that is possible for me. So that's the short answer. Believe me, just about that question, I can go on forever.
Well, you've been so supportive of the studio. I mean, even during our equity crowdfunding campaign, which you know was a huge success. I mean, in just a short period of time, it was never a financial play for us. It was more about building our community, and we got over 1,000 new nobodies. And so you really supported us during the campaign, and we're super grateful to you and everyone else that has helped us get to this point. But I'm even more excited because as Chief Culture Officer, I know that we have to do this right. And I'll remember like one of the first conversations that I had with our leadership team and Mark McNally, I was really amazed by the fact that he knew that culture had to be a big part of our strategy. I mean, he brought me in. I was one of the earliest leadership team members, that was brought in. And I mean, I just thought that was so different from a lot of the other startups that we see, because it's when we talk about the question that we're here to talk about, it's this balance, right? You have, on one hand, we need to make money, right? We have to be profitable. But then on the other hand, we have this other need of making sure that we are aligned with our purpose, and we're a purpose driven culture. So we have to strike that balance. So Brooke, how do we do that as organizations? How do we create sort of harmony between those two very important goals? I would love to hear your perspective on that.
Yes, and I, as a business owner, have to go through that every single day myself too, right? Yes, how do you balance the purpose and the money? But then, as I did more work with companies that I work with, I saw just with my own eyes and with through experience that if you really have a good purpose, very clear, you attract the same type of people to you as a vendor, as a partner, as a consumer, as a client. And then all of a sudden, all that brings out the profit just by nature, right? It becomes a byproduct. And of course, in the early stages, you need the money for marketing, you need the people for hiring, and all of that. You still have to bring out that money at the very beginning as a startup. But once you, just like Nobody Studios has been a great example of that, you were out there showing what kind of a culture you are. And when you exemplify that, people like me were drawn to you. Then we wanted to work with you. So it's the same for companies, especially startups have, I think, a big advantage. That's why I think one of the other big reasons I love Nobody Studios is like you're going to start 100 companies and it already started happening. And if we have the right foot in place from the very beginning, before the startup goes accidentally corporate, and what I mean by that is like, oh, we forget about the culture. It's only about profit. And we're not thinking how we do our services or how we approach clients. Then it's so hard to back away from it. But if you start with the right culture, which I believe purpose is a big ingredient in there, it's not the only ingredient, but it's a big fundamental piece of it, then it's so much better to start and be successful. And I've seen it over and over again. So I don't know if I answered your question, but I feel like, yes, thanks to Mark and people like him who are visionaries, good leaders who get this from the very beginning. And then once you exemplify that, you're going to be able to replicate that in all the companies that you're forming.
I agree with everything you said. And look, you've already got fans and people that are signing in. Our director of Idea Lab is writing in the comments, Min Bogeta. Again, we are drawn by the people to this journey, like what you said. He's another example of a phenomenal leader that I just love to work with day in and day out. Like he's been
No.
an incredible asset to Nobody
Yes.
Studios. And he
Yes.
wrote, he wrote for you, Brooke. He said, "Love your passion, Brooke. You embody what everything we stand for, right?" And so that is so important. And so, obviously, you and I have had this conversation many times about how leadership plays such an important role in cultivating a purpose-driven culture. And you're kind of started to talk about that. But can you specifically give us some guidance on
Yes.
what can leaders do to effectively communicate that they're a purpose-driven culture and reinforce that, right? Because look, it's not just a one-time thing. We all know that. And it's not about just like you hear this on so many podcasts and so many shows. It's not about just sticking your values on a wall somewhere. But how do we do this effectively? And what I'm really curious to know from you too is for like a studio like ours, we are remote. Everybody's virtual and we're global. So if you can give us some tips on
Yes.
what and really provide some guidance and speak to the leadership team at Nobody Studios
Sure.
and all these organizations on what they need to be doing
Yes.
to really live up to that. It's a high expectation
It
for leaders
is. It
today.
is. And nobody's saying it's easy either. It is really not an easy task to take on, but it's worth it. That's what I always say. So I think from what I have seen in the 20 years in working with purpose and organizations, I yet have to see a company where the CEO or the founders did not take the whole ownership of this. If if they're not committed, unfortunately, it doesn't work. If somebody has an example, please reach out to me and tell me, because it's not unfortunate from bottom to top thing. So if the founder, especially as a startup, or the CEO of a company understands the value or purpose, not for the wording of it, but what it really means deep down for a company, because it really even drives the strategy. It's not like you said, it's not something framed on the wall that sits there and nobody does anything. Unfortunately, that's happening too. We call it purpose washing. But if you really do it in the right way, and there's many different steps that I can't always talk about, but the first step is, I think, the founder or the CEO believing that this is going to make a big difference for their people, for the planet, and for the profit too. But we don't want them to do it only because it's going to bring more profit. It's not only for economic value, it's for doing the right thing, because people require that. We know, like, nobody always says, like, business is in an overhaul now. So we can't sustain the way we run businesses anymore. So we want more meaning. It's what the people who want to work for us want. It's also what our consumers want. So we can't just like deny or ignore this is happening right now. So the first step is really the CEO or the founder's commitment. And then get the collectively figure out what your purpose is. So if you're just the one founder or two co-founders, of course you can build it on only the two of you. Then you want to invite people into your business who are aligned with what you believe in, who are passionate about what you're doing. But if you're already an established company, then don't do this as a command control thing. You don't say, oh, this is our purpose from now on. Okay, live with it. We want to make sure this is a collective exercise. So when I go to a company, we invite everyone who wants to be part of this session. We want to hear what they feel like the company's purposes. And believe it or not, like usually people come up with better purpose statements and values than the CEOs or the C level. So we want to make sure this is a collective outcome, the power of the crowd, as Nobody Studios will say. Or if it's just the very early stages of the startup, of course, founders start that, but then it evolves over time. I love that. I don't know if you know the reinventing organizations. We might have talked with you about that skill concept. They always talk about purpose as an evolve thing, right? It can evolve over time, not every single day, hopefully, but that is really the first step, and then the values, and then the vision, which are all very tied. And all of that really forms the culture from the very beginning, because it tells a lot to the people who want to work with you, because that's the company you are in. You're not only there for profit, you care about what people think. They are part of the decision making process, and you have something beyond profit to come and live every single day, even if you're remote. I think that even works better because we live in a world like everybody's remote. But every day, if the CEO or the C level or the culture people like you keep on reminding why they come to work every day, they are just thinking, okay, I'm not punching numbers every day, or I'm not only doing coding every day. There's a bigger mission. I'm a big part of a bigger picture. So I know there's so much more to say, but I'm going to shut up right now. So those are just the beginning steps, but it really starts with the leaders, really.
You know, you've touched on so much there on the crucial role of leadership, and I hope the people that are watching and listening to this really understand that you have to be role models as leaders for your teams, right? So those days where you can say one thing and do something else, I mean, that's just not going to work anymore, right? And so, you know, just honestly, we had like a few weeks ago, we had another session where we started looking at our values that were initially, you know, created when Mark was still in his garage. And since then, we've already scaled. Now we've got over 1,000 nobodies all over. So we got our key stakeholders and leadership team in a room, and we reevaluated. We went through each core value, the wording of the values, and we broke it down and said, let's make sure that these are still, like you said, our values, our purpose might evolve as we add more people on, but we still have to make sure that everyone feels connected. to that mission and to the values. And so we went through and everybody gave their feedback to make sure we have to get the buy-in, right? Because if the people in that room aren't going to be committed and don't know what the purpose and the values are, it's not going to go too far, right? But then the second step, and I love what you said, was it has to be communicated effectively, and it's not a one-time thing. You have to reinforce that. So what are some ways we should be doing that at the studio? Like, what are some suggestions you have? Again, being global, where you've got people working all different time zones, I mean, what are some like 3 or 4 ways that we can effectively communicate what those values are? So for example, right now I'm working on we're kind of operationalizing our onboarding programs. Up until recently, we've been able to do that manually. And so we're going through and automating a lot of it and doing all of that. And we've got this drip campaign going out to all of our new people that are going through it. And I'm looking at it and I'm saying, all right, does this tie in with our purpose? Is this somewhere talking about our core values? Am I being too nitpicky there? I mean, or am I doing this right? I welcome your feedback.
I know who you are, so I know you're doing it right, and it's exactly that. So it's just verbalizing what you already know, what has been shared with the company, and what has been done together with everybody in the company. Anyways, it's the collective wisdom of the crowd that brings this up anyways, right? And then it goes through the whole stages of the employee experience, I would say, from the very point where you have a job ad that definitely talks about your purpose, your values, what you're all about, instead of asking, okay, you bring this to us, this is the type of people we want, right? From creating the job ad to the candidate experience to the hiring process, and then overall until they exit the company, you have to weave this wonderful purpose and culture work into what you do, like starting the meetings with that, ending the meetings with that, or like you said, like even like maybe highlighting people who are a great example of using the purpose or showing the purpose when they do their work, or being really transparent, like that's one of your values, like showing and highlighting those little stories that are happening every single day. And I think Nobody Studios is doing a great job with you, and then all the other ones that I know who are posting it, so that people who are outside of the company as of now also see that. Because I don't need to be there in an office with any one of you, including Min and Mark and you and Tiffany and everybody I met, because I know what you're doing and what you're all about. It's so clear. So I think we need to do exactly what you did with the new companies we're forming, or any established company wants to do that. It has to be so part of the conversation that it becomes second nature. So then anybody you tap on the shoulder from Nobody Studios will be able to say what you're all about. Because in most of the companies, it's not the case. It just stays at the top. It's communicated one time, done. Then you tap on the shoulder of, that's what I do when I work with clients. So what is this whole company about? What's your purpose, vision? So you can tell it's definitely not communicated efficiently, and people still have struggle. So it has to be living and breathing every day. And it does take time. It's not going to happen in a night or in a month. It's going to take time until you get there. But that's why I say the leadership should own it. You can't give it to one person to do this. Everybody owns it. And then you get to talk about it until it gets second nature, really.
I mean, everything you said resonates with me, and you know this, and this is why I love this conversation, because it's true. How many times have I worked with a client, when I've shown up to do a workshop or facilitate a session, and I ask leadership, what is your purpose or what are your core values? And then you get like, I haven't looked at those in a while. It should just roll off your tongue if we do this right. And I know we're almost out of time, but I have one more question for you, right? So I'm curious as to, have you witnessed any particular challenges or barriers by organizations that are trying to adopt a purpose driven culture, and what are some ways that they can overcome that? I'm curious to see if you've got maybe a specific example you can share with us.
Of course, there like so many different challenges, but on the top of my mind, one would be like, again, what I was telling just 2 minutes ago, like if the CEO doesn't have the exact buy-in and they feel like there's so much pressure in the world right now to talk about purpose and they give it to somebody to take care of it and never got involved, that doesn't work. So one thing to overcome that is, of course, it always boils down to the individuals, right? If the CEO or the leader understands that it is good for business, it is good for clients, it is good, it's a win-win for everyone. That's why sometimes it's good to experience how it looks like. That's why during workshops and trainings, that's one thing we want the leaders to feel how it can change their business. So one thing to overcome that is really getting them into the depths of it before saying this is what you need to do, right? Another challenge is I think is very important because we don't want to um, forget about the individual's certain purposes in life too. So we can have this umbrella one, but some of the best purposeful companies I work with also bring me or anybody like me to do a workshop to find out what the individuals in that company so that they find their own purpose and their values. And at the end of it, they're okay if the alignment is not there and people want to leave. That's okay because they know they're always going to draw and attract the right people in. So those are the two things. We cannot forget about individuals. It's always individuals that form the community, and purpose brings the community feeling to our culture, which is great. But it can't be a top-down thing again. That's one of the mistakes and challenges I see. Include everyone who wants to be included in that conversation.
Your insights are spot on, and I know that we've encountered some of those challenges at Nobody Studios, right? And so, like you said, it's not easy work, and I think
Yes.
the way that we come back to overcoming those challenges is really by creating that culture of inclusivity, and you've talked about that, and creating an environment where people have that sense of belonging and collaboration, right? So we're always encouraging open door policies. We're always providing opportunities, like to the point where it's like feedback is a normal, like we just are putting together automating the onboarding program. And one of the first feedback I gave is I want to get feedback from people on a daily basis. Let's get them used to giving feedback right from the beginning. We want to, what was good about your experience today? How can we make it better, and continue to reiterate? Because, as we add more people on, we're going to get different feedback, and we want to make sure they feel like they're involved, not
Yes.
just in the culture, because they are the culture, they
Yes.
directly and indirectly, but we also want them involved in the decision-making processes as well, because that's
Exactly.
what's going to help bridge that gap between leadership and the team, right? We want to make sure that they know that they're valued, because without our teams, we're not going to go anywhere. We're not going to be able to build those 100 companies that we want to build. So I really
Yes.
love this all. And okay, I got one more question for you. I said that was my last one, but Brooke, you've been very, again, very supportive of the studio. I definitely want to look for more opportunities for us to co-create and collaborate together. So where do you see sort of our collaboration being in 5 years from now? What are some of the things that you would like to help the studio with? And what do we have to look forward to? Because I'm always looking to level up our culture at Nobody Studios. So what role do
Thank
you want to play in that?
Thank you. We already have a one unbelievably wonderful culture, obviously, but of course we can all evolve all day, every day, right? So thanks for asking the question, first of all. Of course, what makes me very excited is that you already exemplified a wonderful, inclusive, transparent, crowd-funded culture. What excites me is those other 100 companies that you're going to start off. And like I was saying, it's so much better to start with the right mindset, with the right steps at the very beginning of a company instead of going like accidentally in the wrong path, right? So what I'm mostly interested is like, okay, how can we collaborate to create the very beginning of these companies with the culture, with the purpose, the values, and vision, which all feeds into the culture. Can I be piece of that? Can I be part of that? Makes me feel excited, even with just the opportunity out there, even if we don't know how the details are going to work. I think being there at the very beginning so that they do have all the right tools so that they do not only survive but thrive with everything that you said, to taking the ownership, having a great culture. And I know you did post like what is more important, like productivity, innovation, or having the culture. I think when you have the right culture, the productivity, the innovation, the everything comes because of that. And one of the biggest ingredients, I think, is to create a community-like sense, because you're all working for something bigger than a paycheck.
That's right. I love it. I love it. All right. Well, that's a great way to end today's show. This was so awesome. So, look, for everybody that's watching this, if you're looking to change the world with your ideas, your talent, your influence, and you want to be a part of our journey and be a part of this incredible culture and community that we're building at Nobody Studios, join our journey. Go to our website. Look, building 100 companies in 5 years is not going to be easy. But with people like Brooke and Min and Brian Kelly, I see him. He's talking about consistency and celebrating behaviors, and other people that are supporting our journey. We would love to have you part of this if this is something that resonates with you. Thank you again, Brooke, for being here and being a part of our team. Really appreciate you. And I look forward to collaborating with you in the future. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, and to the whole Nobody crowd and everybody who's getting involved. You are making a huge, wonderful social impact on so many people. So thank you for that. Yes.
Awesome. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day. Bye.
Bye-bye.